Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of February 10th, 2015. I'd like to thank the Garden Club for the arrangements they always provide for our meetings. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ibarra?
Here.
Councilmember Medina?
Here.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Here.
Vice Mayor Salazar?
Here.
Mayor Ruane?
Here. Mr. Rico, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There aren't any specific announcements this evening. We do have a presentation from Kirsten Pinocchi with Recology on the first-year results of the organics program. Kirsten?
Okay, really regal. Good evening, Mayor Ruane and Council. When I was here 6 months ago to give the Council an update on the organics program, I was asked by Council to come back after the program had been in place for 1 year and to give you an update on how it was going. So that's why I'm here tonight, and thank you for allowing me to be here. So how we got here. So as you know, January 1st, we began allowing residents to put food scraps and soiled paper products into their existing green containers, which currently had yard waste and grass clippings inside. We provided them a kitchen pail to assist them in this process. And this is also the time that we began weekly collection of the green cart. During the past 12 months, we've provided education to the residents in both printed and electronic format, and we've also reached out to commercial businesses that we know produce high volumes of food waste. We've also been reaching out to the multifamily complexes and providing them with the opportunity to also participate in the program. And today, we continue to perform outreach and education to both residents and businesses. And we're also performing waste audits for our commercial customers to determine their level of organic material. Over time, we've seen that behavior change is a large factor when measuring the success of the program. As more and more residents and businesses participate, the concept that food scraps and soiled paper products are as easy to recycle as a bottle or a can starts to take root in our community. And we've seen this trend continue as the behaviors continue to evolve and change. Organic diversion continues to increase. As you can see from the chart, in 2013, the only material allowed in the green cart was grass clippings and leaves. And then in 2014, you approved the addition of the food scrap program, and that led to an increase of 735 tons in its first year. And I also would like you to keep in mind that 2014 was truly a year of drought, and regionally across Recology, we saw the food waste and the grass clippings tonnage go down, so that number is significantly positive. Another measurement of increase in program participation this far is the reduction in cart size. So customers are pulling their organic material now out of their gray cart and placing it in the green cart. So this shift of material is allowing customers to migrate down to the 20-gallon cart if they so choose. We have seen now a 65% increase in the 20-gallon cart subscription since the inception of organics. And our residents in San Bruno are truly great recyclers and organic diverters because 87% of our residential customers, 87% are in a 32-gallon or smaller. So we don't have many customers in a larger can anymore. Now we'll take a shift to commercial. And what I shared with you previously is 6 months ago, we talked about the dynamic makeup of our commercial accounts. And 134 are major organic producers and 366 have little to no organics. Because of our outreach in the past year, we have 58 customers on the commercial organics program, which is a 43% participation rate. And 6 months ago, we were at 35%. So it's continually growing. And it is an ongoing process. And that's not to say we won't be reaching out to the additional 366 because we do find that there is additional volume there because we do have allowed the soiled paper products. So there's some material there for us to go after. Some of the struggles when we reach out to the commercial customers are management's reluctant to change, the need for corporate approval, and some have some space constraints. So we are working diligently with them to find a solution that works for everyone. The result in working closely with the commercial clients is shown here on the graph. They are changing their behavior and they are beginning to participate. So our ultimate goal is to convert our major garbage producers into an organic compactor, and YouTube is one of our leaders. They've converted their recycling compactor, and they also have an organics compactor, and Molly Stones is working diligently toward that process as well. So 2013 was our pilot year, so we only had a few customers participating, and in our first year of the commercial program, oh shoot, I didn't do it. Our commercial customers have increased their diversion by 527%. They are diverting 765 tons in its first year, so they're doing a great job. Organics outreach doesn't stop at the residential, curb, and commercial. We're also focusing on our multifamilies. We've been working very closely with Shelter Creek, and they have 300 pails already dispersed within their community. And those are residents requesting a pail, and that's about a 25% participation rate from Shelter Creek. Checking up and down the peninsula, that's a very high participation rate for multifamilies, so they're a strong contributor. We've also started with Peninsula Place. They've got some kitchen pails out there, and they've started in 3 locations. Pacific Bay, we've been chatting with them, and Acapella just began about a week ago. And we are also focusing on the smaller complexes, so the 5 and 6 unit complexes that call us to participate, we work with property management and help them get started on the program as well. So here's where I really get to applaud you as a council for being forward thinkers. September 28th, Governor Jerry Brown approved Assembly Bill 1826. So in a nutshell, what that's going to force the city to do is actually to implement an organics program. So it's going to mandate the cities to offer the program because they're going to then mandate our commercial customers who produce organics to participate in the program. So I'm happy to say that by the time that AB 1826 comes into play, we will not only be adhering to the plan, but we will have a 2-year-old mature organics program already in place. So this is a continued effort that we are very committed to. Our outreach and education moves forward, and new ideas and presentations are coming. I'm happy to say that we have now scheduled our second compost giveaway, which will be on Saturday, April 5th, in the same location as last year up at Beckner Shelter, so our residents can come and get some nice rich compost that come from the material they've composted. We will participate in educational booths that come our direction and be able to continue our outreach there. We were very fortunate enough to help participate in this year's Centennial Carnival, where we produce very little to zero waste at that carnival. We had organic and recycling containers throughout the event, and we produced very little garbage. The last event that we're working on is a lot of events are happening here at the Senior Center. Right now, there's a lot of crab feeds, so we're working with the event coordinators of those events to maybe have their events very zero waste, because now we have an organics program in San Bruno. Okay, so thank you for letting me give you guys an update. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them.
Any questions for Kirsten?
Through the chair.
Michael?
I have a couple questions. One, do we have numbers on the actual number of people that are putting their green bin out every week? And do we know how that's changed from when it started? I mean, I know we have the tonnage, but to kind of gauge actual participation, do we know how many people are actually doing it on a weekly basis?
I don't have numbers here tonight. I can certainly try and get some for you. Some customers are still putting it out on a bi-weekly basis, although we encourage them weekly because of the food that's now in the green cart, but some customers are still on their bi-weekly habit. So we can try and gauge that number for you.
Okay. And has there been any issue with people putting the wrong things in the green bin, or have people been pretty well educated about what goes in there and what doesn't go in there? I know that some people were storing things in plastic bags and then putting plastic bags in there. Has that become an issue?
They're doing a great job. Because we are semi-automated, the driver is still lifting the lid and hooking it up to the cart, so he's able to see the contents. If they aren't doing it correctly, they get a tag, and then they call our office and we educate them, and from then on, they do it right. But we don't issue very many contamination tags in San Bruno. They're paying attention and they're doing it right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Keep it up. I'm sorry, Irene had a question?
No, I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for coming. It was great to hear, and I'm really excited that we are doing it and doing it well. So
Doing a
thank
great
you.
job. You're welcome. Thank you for letting me come.
Review of the agenda, item number 5. Any comments on the agenda? Okay. Approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting of January 27, 2015, and special council meeting of January 27, 2015. Any errors, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, they'll be accepted as submitted, approved as submitted. Item 7, consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented earlier council action, and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested by a council member, citizen, or staff. Any?
Through the chair,
Rico?
request to remove 7E.
7E,
Please.
okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any action by the council on the remainder?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve items 7A, B, C, and D. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 7E is adopt a resolution accepting funds from the Senior Center Program Activity Trust Fund and authorizing appropriation of $6,946 for purchase of a replacement refrigerator for the San Bruno Senior Center Nutrition Program.
Just a couple things, if I may, on this is that, A, it's in need, so that's clearly as I saw it this evening. 2, I also wanted to note that how it is being funded, because it's not out of the general fund. So I'd like that acknowledged so that everyone understands what the board has done and what they're doing up here in order to help. As they always have, it's been a volunteer organization, so I'd like that brought up. And then, of course, when one comes in, one must go out. And so I'm wondering what we're going to do and how can we possibly not pay for and or recycle, or can we do something with our current
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'll do a brief staff report and then I'll specifically address the questions of Councilmember Medina. We've been serving the nutrition program here at the Senior Center since the opening of the Senior Center approximately 28 years ago. And when we began delivering the lunch program, we were fortunate to receive a refrigerator from the San Bruno Park School District. That refrigerator was not new, and it had a couple of years of use in their nutrition program, and so that refrigerator now is approximately 34 years old. Last summer, it began to show some wear and was leaking fluid. We had hoped that we would be able to continue to service that refrigerator so that we could include it in the regular flow of the budget request, but it became clear to us last fall that we would need to replace that refrigerator more quickly. We approached the Senior Advisory Board, which is the volunteer body that provides guidance here at the Senior Center, and they have authority over what we refer to as the Program and Activity Trust Fund. That fund has an accumulation right now of approximately $158,000 and is funded through donations and program revenues through activities and programs delivered here at the Senior Center. The Senior Advisory Board generously, unanimously agreed to fund the refrigerator, and we are now pleased to be able to bring that forward to you this evening for approval. I learned today that Recology has generously agreed to dispose of the old refrigerator, which we hope we will be able to do in about a week's time. We've placed the order for the new refrigerator pending City Council's approval this evening, and we should have that, like I said, in about 7 days. And as soon as we receive it, we'll contact Recology and have them dispose of the old refrigerator. In the meantime, we will be back in touch with the vendor that we're purchasing the refrigerator from to see if we can get a credit back in some fashion for the disposal costs that they'll no longer incur.
Okay. Any other questions on 7E, action?
Through the chair.
I'm sorry, Irene?
I appreciate the report, and I just want everyone to know exactly how generous the nutrition group is, and it's a $7,000 refrigerator. It's not just a $1,000 one from Lowe's. It's a $7,000 industrial refrigerator. So we've talked about this refrigerator several times now, and nobody's mentioned the price. So I just thought everyone should know that it's a substantial amount. So thank you, and with that, I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve item 7E under consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 8, public hearings. There aren't any public hearings this evening. Item number 9, public comment on items not on this agenda. It is the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and interaction where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Would anyone like to address the council under public comment? Just tell us your name and your street.
Good evening, City Council members. Mr. Ruane, my name is Ison Alotat. My street is Pine Street, and this is regarding previous comments that I had made about the San Mateo Community College District. Previous President Jose Sanchez had been working with Mr. Ken Ibarra regarding a shuttle that would be beneficial to all students here in San Mateo County attending Kenyatta, CSM, and Skyline. If you could please get the ball rolling for us students who have to take the ECR or train. It's very costly for us who do not own vehicles. My email address I will give to you at the end of my comment. Also, as the law commissioner of this town, the self-appointed, unofficial, but recognized within the community, volunteer and community activist and liaison between the criminals, you members of the City Council, the community, and law enforcement. I am in the process of attempting to coordinate schedules with Mr. Chief Barberini, and I would like to have a meeting because I am in the process of filing action against the San Bruno Police Department as well as the San Mateo County for corruption. For example, I was arrested by, I believe, I cannot recall the name, it may have been Corporal Joe Valiente, but I might be mistaken. But it happened at Wendy's, and it was for an open container, but to be expeditious as my time is running out, for resisting arrest, when all I was doing was saying, I don't have an ID, why are you checking me? I didn't understand what was going on. So that was what the arrest was for. And then I could not make a phone call outside of McGuire facility, which is the intake place where they take men and women who are incarcerated or detained. And this has happened numerous times because the city of San Mateo County actually has this agreement with all cellular phone devices as well as my parents' landline where you can't make calls. So I know many people who don't get a call to their friends because Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Metro PCS don't collect calls from the facility. I do not know if you are aware of this, but this is a serious matter. And it causes much detriment to people who have never been arrested and are scared for their lives because, as you may imagine, if you've ever watched programs such as Locked Up, it could be a quite scary, frightening experience to be incarcerated and have your freedom and liberties detained. So I have for you documents that I will give to you after my comment is completed, which is right now. So thank you.
Just please give them to the city clerk and she'll see that we get them. All right.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Item number 10, conduct of business. 10A, receive an oral report on the city's initiatives and activities related to the California Public Utilities Commission, CPUC, investigation of the 2010 PG&E gas pipeline explosion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. We will be following along with a PowerPoint for which we also have hard copies available if anybody is interested. I'll do the first part of the presentation and then turn it over for some comments by the city attorney as we go along. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to give the City Council and the community, and we hope that there are numbers of people watching at home, an update and a report on the now 4.5 years long process of advocacy and action that the city has undertaken in the wake of the devastating September 2010 pipeline explosion in our town. I want to first of all acknowledge the leadership provided by this city council. This picture in the PowerPoint shows you at the first anniversary commemoration on September 9th, 2011. We had, even then, virtually no idea what this city would be challenged with in producing a full recovery for this community in the wake of that devastation. Then, and immediately after the explosion in 2010, City Council vowed to do everything within its power to rebuild expeditiously the neighborhood that was destroyed and to restore the community, and importantly, to support recovery of the victims and of the community that had been traumatized. Much of that work is actually still, I'm sort of sorry to report, still in progress. But the city has achieved some very, very significant accomplishments, and we wanted to illuminate some of those tonight. But before we go on to the real meat of this presentation, I wanted to note that this part of our story really begins in late 2011, early 2012, and focuses largely on the city's participation in the proceedings before the California Public Utilities Commission. Prior to that, the city achieved a couple of very, very significant accomplishments that are not the subject of this presentation tonight, but deserve repeating. The first is the establishment of a $50 million trust fund in discussion with PG&E in order that the city had the funds and could thereby pursue all of the necessary actions surrounding rebuilding, restoring this community. Subsequent to that, at the city's initiative, the city negotiated a restitution fund, again with PG&E, in order to provide the opportunity for this community, as part of its healing, as part of its recovery, to do some good, to provide some benefit in the long term to this community in order to address the serious trauma and the lasting effects of the devastation that occurred here in 2010. The purpose, again, of the presentation tonight is to give you and members of the public specifically a report on what is going on, why is it important, and most critically, why does the city of San Bruno remain fully engaged in continuing to press its agenda even after, well after, financial restitution has been secured and funds to rebuild the physical devastation have been secured and are in progress? What you see on the slide before you is the reason. 8 residents of our community died. A neighborhood was destroyed, and an entire community continues to experience the trauma of knowing that what happened here actually could happen again. That was confirmed by the NTSB in the first year after the explosion. The NTSB, as you know, conducted an exhaustive year-long investigation that determined the multiple causes of the disaster. And most importantly, that investigation revealed that this disaster was not an accident. It was not a tragic accident that could not have been predicted or prevented. In fact, what caused the explosion was multiple deficiencies, largely on the part of Pacific Gas and Electric Company, as well as on the part of the CPUC, which organization failed to effectively and rigorously regulate. This slide identifies the specific findings of the NTSB, and the last 3 bullet points under the heading of CPUC having to do with violation of California transparency laws, rules of practice, and the initiation of state and federal investigations obviously occurred following, but directly on the basis of the information that was initially developed by the NTSB. In the wake of the NTSB investigation, its conclusions, its findings, and its recommendations, the city identified 5 specific objectives that would guide its work and would attempt to right the wrong, to set the stage so that the people of San Bruno and of California need not worry whether something like what happened here might possibly happen again. Those 5 objectives have continued to guide the city's effort and to focus its work effort out of all of the avenues that we could track down. First, investigate the cause of the explosion. As I mentioned, that's been completed by the NTSB, but remains in the latter stages of progress through the through the CPUC. Correct and remediate negligent practices and conduct. And as we go forward in our presentation tonight, you'll see that that remains very much an open issue, with new discoveries being made virtually on a daily basis, even now, 4.5 years later. Penalize appropriately, and again, I would just mention that this includes not only the compensation and the restitution that the city has received, but more specifically addresses the actual fines and penalties that will be assessed through the CPUC against PG&E, not only as a punishment, if you will, but as a marker for utility companies, not only in California, but across the nation, to identify that poor behavior, poor management of system assets can result in devastating financial consequence. And I would pause here to just note for a moment that under California law, fines and penalties do not affect rates, so shareholders will be responsible for those costs that are directly attributable to fines and penalties. Those costs will not result in increased rates for customers of the utility system. Importantly, ensuring safety improvements, it remains a guidepost in the city's work effort, and taking efforts that we can, in conjunction with others, to reform the regulatory system. And that, in large measure, is part and parcel of what our conversation with you tonight is about. Specifically, we want to report on the city's progress against each of those objectives. As I mentioned, we've achieved some results, and we could check off those items as completed. However, the preventable tragedy that was caused by gross negligence, faulty record keeping, and negligent oversight, both by PG&E and by the CPUC, remains an issue of concern and activity. Second, the city vowed to correct and remediate negligent practices. The CPUC has found over 3,000 separate violations of law occurring over a period extending back over 50 years. 70 corrective actions have been identified as needed, and a proposed $1.4 billion penalty and fine is pending for decision before the California Public Utilities Commission. The CPUC has additionally ordered $2.2 billion in pipeline safety improvements to assure that the system is capable and can be operated in a safe and effective manner. And as this process has unfolded, this slide shows one example of the additional issues that have been raised, that have been identified, and have been adjudicated through the California Public Utilities Commission, resulting in fines and penalties. As to the city's objective related to penalizing appropriately, the fines and penalties that are proposed to be assessed against PG&E represent a historic level. Actually, prior to the explosion here in San Bruno and the fine and the proceedings in which San Bruno has engaged, there have been a really very minimal amount of fines and penalties assessed. And in fact, as we have continued participation in these proceedings, we have actually, I think we can take pride in the fact that the CPUC recognizes and has begun to step up to evaluate and penalize appropriately. Again, this penalty includes not only monetary sanctions, but corrective measures, and the city continues to call for full and complete completion of the NTSB recommendations. Ensuring system safety improvements, an important aspect of our advocacy, has included recognizing not only the corrections that are needed in PG&E's operational practices and safety procedures, but that the utility systems throughout our state operated by others need similar attention and have been subject to the same level of deficient regulatory oversight. The City of San Bruno importantly continues to push for two improvements that address directly the needs and the objectives that we outlined several years ago, but are not yet assured. And those are the establishment of an independent monitor at the California Public Utilities Commission to assure oversight of the Commission's activities and its regulatory procedures in order to establish and assure that a culture of safety takes hold and begins to frame and shape all of the decisions and the activities that the CPUC is responsible for. Again, that is not yet the case. A pipeline safety trust, the City of San Bruno has continued and will continue to advocate for funding to establish an independent body modeled after that was established out of Bellingham, Washington, in the wake of a similarly devastating tragedy that occurred in 1998. That Pipeline Safety Trust, known as the National Pipeline Safety Trust, has been a vigorous advocate for pipeline safety, for legislative initiative, and for regulatory reform across our nation. Their work is important. It is a very small organization, and although it's had a mighty impact, its work needs particular focus in California if we are to fully accomplish the objectives that our experience put in front of us. I'm going to turn the presentation over now to the city attorney, who's going to talk about some of the very specific issues related to reform of a broken system, which continues to be current on our radar screen and far from what we could say is fixed.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, what you see on your screen is the lawsuit that you authorized the city to file against the Public Utilities Commission for the disclosure of public records. And as you know, that lawsuit came only after multiple and lengthy attempts were made by the city to get the Public Utilities Commission to comply with state law regarding the disclosure of public records. Ultimately, as you also know and authorized, the case was settled. It was resolved. The settlement's a matter of public record. And as a result of that settlement, about 7,000 emails were disclosed by the PUC. Those emails showed about 40 instances, that's 40 instances, of what the city felt were improper ex parte communications. And just to explain for the benefit of the public, an improper ex parte communication is one in which executive level members of the Public Utilities Commission were having conversations, undisclosed conversations, with the same level or similar level members of Pacific Gas and Electric Company about certain kinds of pending proceedings. And the PUC has rules that both regulates and prohibits some of those communications. As part of the settlement that the city agreed to, the PUC did agree to initiate reform of their Public Records Act procedures, and they have also agreed, which they've already started, and they also agreed to revamp their website to make it more user-friendly for members of the public who might wish to make a Public Records Act request. However, what we didn't realize is that that case was going to be a catalyst for some more alarming discoveries. PG&E did conduct their own internal investigation, apparently, and disclosed to the media that they had reviewed 65,000 emails. They disclosed some of those emails to the media, and when asked for the rest of those emails by the city of San Bruno, they indicated they would not provide those. However, as you can see, those emails supported the NTSB's conclusion, and I guess at that time we could say it was almost an assumption because they didn't have a lot of evidence to support it, but it certainly supported their conclusion that the relationship between the regulator and the regulated entity was far too close for comfort. The emails that you see on the screen demonstrate an inappropriate familiarity that you might see between colleagues or between friends, and not between an entity that is supposed to regulate a public utility responsible for the distribution of gas and electric power throughout the state of California. In any event, when the city requested that PG&E provide those apparently 65,000 emails to the city, PG&E refused, and the city had to go to the administrative law judge to request that those emails be produced directly to the city. And ultimately, they were ordered to be produced. And some of those examples that you see on the screen right now are emails that I think are best described as alarming in terms of their content. The very first one is something that's an example of the parties discussing how they're going to violate the ex-parte rules, which they otherwise tell everybody that they either follow or don't know enough whether to follow or not. So this is an example of something in which the city believes should not be occurring. You shouldn't have parties trying to figure out how to violate the rules. And then the second email on there, I think, is just shortly after the explosion, and I think it speaks for itself. Let me pause for just a minute and ask the question, what did the city learn from its Public Records Act case and the settlement and the subsequent fallout? I think we've really learned one major thing, and that is that the Public Utilities Commission is not accountable to the public, your constituents. And there's three main reasons for that. The first reason, I should say, all of those reasons are grounded in state statute, in state law passed by the legislature. So the first reason they're not accountable to your constituents is that state law says that all information that flows from a public utility to the Public Utilities Commission is confidential. There is a presumption of confidentiality for all information, and that is one of the bases that the Public Utilities Commission used to deny our requests for information. They said, look at state law. It says it's confidential. We can't possibly produce it because then we'd be violating state law. Well, that is the opposite of the presumption for all local agencies, the city of San Bruno and every other state agency, where information that is sent from somebody to the city is presumed not to be confidential. It is presumed to be a matter of public record unless shown otherwise. So that's the first state law that results in the lack of transparency. The second state law says that members of the public, your constituents, while they can sue the city in Superior Court, and incidentally, you had a member of the public coming up tonight saying that she may be interested in doing that, while those individuals can sue you in Superior Court, they can't sue the Public Utilities Commission in Superior Court. They can only sue the Public Utilities Commission about important matters in the Appellate Court or the Supreme Court of California. That makes, in the city's view, public accountability virtually impossible to enforce, because no member of the public is going to go to the Appellate Court or the California Supreme Court to file a lawsuit. It's really just an impossibility. That is the opposite, of course, for every other local agency in the state and virtually every other state agency, where members of the public who are aggrieved by a decision can simply file a lawsuit in Superior Court. It's local, it's accessible, it's inexpensive, and you can usually find a lawyer to represent you. Not the case in appellate court. The last thing we learned is that while the ex parte rules have not been followed, actually there's a deeper problem. Local agencies like you, when you have ex parte contacts with people coming to you for development applications or other businesses, you are required to report those communications before you make a decision. And in fact, you'll remember, both on the Planning Commission agenda and on your City Council agenda, before development applications, we have a section that encourages all of the council members to disclose their ex parte contacts. That's not the rule at the CPUC. At the CPUC, the commissioners don't have to report any ex parte contacts. It's the private entity that has to report the ex parte contacts. So then you might ask yourself, what's the remedy if the private entity doesn't report the ex parte contacts? And the answer is, there really isn't any. Because A, all of the communications are confidential, and B, even if they weren't, you can't sue them in Superior Court. So the combination of these three state laws are what we believe we have learned from the filing of this case. And those are three of the laws that we believe need to be reformed that have come to our attention. So what happened as a result of the city's lawsuit and then PG&E's disclosures is we had 7 high-ranking officials of the company and the CPUC we either let go or not appointed. And of course, as you know, 1 additional commissioner was recused from participating in the San Bruno decision. We also have ongoing criminal investigations of both PG&E, the corporation, and a number of individuals. So those proceedings are going forward, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. So I think it's safe to say that the city's case and the city council's courage in taking a perhaps risky, perhaps unpopular decision to go ahead and sue another public agency, which is an unusual thing to do, really was the catalyst for all of the many things that have occurred and the revelations that have opened up since then, and have exposed the fact that it's state law that needs to be changed in order to truly reform the Public Utilities Commission. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to Connie so she can conclude the presentation.
Great, thank you. As we've identified, a number of important accomplishments have occurred, and among them is a change of leadership at the California Public Utilities Commissioner, at the Commission. Commissioner Picker, who has recently been appointed president of the Commission, has said a lot of the right things. And I would like to be optimistic that the Commission is headed in a new direction, that in fact the change of leadership and the revelations that have occurred, particularly over the last several months, have in fact made a difference, not only in public opinion, but in actual tangible reform at the California Public Utilities Commission. Commissioner Picker, President Picker, has committed to a new commission code of conduct. Under his leadership, the commission recently ordered the release of the 65,000 emails, as the city attorney reported just a moment ago. And the commission has begun to acknowledge inappropriate, illegal access and relationship with utilities regulated under their jurisdiction. Commitment to change is a good thing. It's a great start. It's not the same thing as actual, tangible, sustainable change. That's what's necessary, and that's what this initiative is really all about. I've been approached a number of times where people have said, well, the city of San Bruno has devoted a tremendous amount of time, effort, and resource to the various actions and initiatives that you've undertaken. And something is really happening now. See, numbers of people are gone, people are saying the right thing. You've done it. Isn't that what you were looking for? And again, I would say, yes, it's a great start, and it takes time to assure that the tangible reform actually takes hold and that the change that is sorely needed to protect the safety of citizens of this state actually take hold. So we can be proud. Numbers of important initiatives have borne fruit. They've been completed and they've made a difference. Without attempting to signal what we haven't done in favor of or as a priority over what we have done, I would jump to the bottom of this list and say that there is still a fair amount of work to do by us, by others, to assure that the penalty actually results in a safer system. Good progress, result not yet achieved, and importantly, reform of a broken system of utility operation and a broken system of utility regulation. Our initiatives have resulted in a conclusion, among others, that actual change will require legislative action and initiative. That, again, is appearing to take hold. Our legislator, Jerry Hill, in particular, now a state senator, has been singularly active and aggressive in forwarding legislation. Numbers of other legislators have begun to take notice and to take action that we hope will actually begin to change the rules by which the CPUC operates and strengthen the effect of the regulatory environment. Lastly, I'd like to just acknowledge the recognition that the city has received. I think it's very fair to say, and this is just some among many acknowledgments that the city has received or that have been openly discussed. I think it's fair to say, had it not been for the city's initiative to take that difficult action to sue the Public Utilities Commission, many of the pieces of information that belong in this puzzle would still be undercover. We would not have documented tangible proof of the finding that the NTSB made 3.5 years ago, that a too cozy relationship between the regulator and the regulated exists, and that was a clear and tangible cause of the explosion that occurred here in San Bruno. So while the city has been acknowledged, I think you should take personal credit for this as well on behalf of the leadership of the community of San Bruno in recognizing that preventing tragedy or doing everything that we can to prevent tragedy from happening elsewhere is a critical piece of this community's healing, a peace and security that no amount of restitution funds can buy or secure for the citizens of San Bruno who have been so irreparably damaged. Before I close, I'd just like to introduce and acknowledge the work of 3 people. There was, 4 people, I'm sorry, I was wondering where you were. 4 people who are in the audience. Steve Myers of the Myers-Nave Law Firm, Craig Betancourt of Prager Associates, a strategic advisor, Britt Stratman of the Myers-Nave Law Firm, and Alex Doniak, sitting next to me, of Singer Associates. This team has done a phenomenal job in carrying out the policy guidance that this City Council provided to us. You know, I appreciate not only your leadership, but that the tangible work effort of this group in achieving the results that we're proud to report to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Connie?
I don't have any questions. I just like to say, 4.5 years and sitting up here with this team, and Mr. Mayor, you have been uncanny and almost perfect in how we should have acted. I can't think of any other better ways, but proud of how you've represented the city and how you've dealt with not only running a city, but also this unusual and catastrophic event. And you've said, and it's always stuck in my mind, every single time you said that you will not, we're doing this so that it will never happen again. And that's easy to say, but we're not there yet. And I'm proud to say that this is, we're getting there, but there's still, based on that one email saying that there was a pipe right underneath the president's, the CPUC's president's house that they didn't know about. We're not sure about anything a lot. We're sure about what's going on in this town, but I think it is still somewhat of a responsibility that San Bruno stands in front and makes sure that it doesn't happen again, and that makes sure that those communities know how to prevent it. So, thank you.
Good. Anyone else? I just want to say that what I've been trying to say in all of these press conferences, and sometimes you get away from what this is really all about, is you bring it back to that evening when 8 people lost their lives. And that's what this is all about. And I've said before, in San Bruno we have 8 angels on our shoulders, and a lot of other people, and you saw it tonight on the presentation, have 8 lives in their conscience. We're finding out a lot of those people don't have much of a conscience, but we're trying to make it different, so we owe it to them, we owe it to the families that lost their homes and the people that are traumatized. So we have a little ways to go, but we're going to keep doing it. We're not going to let it go. So, thank you. Item 10B, adopt a resolution authorizing the transfer from the city's custodial account to the San Bruno Community Foundation of number 1, $350,000 for operational expenses, and 2, $141,031 to be reimbursed by the San Bruno Community Foundation to the City of San Bruno for San Bruno Community Foundation formation expenses.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. We're very pleased to bring forward to you tonight the next important step in the formation and operation of the San Bruno Community Foundation. Let me give you a little bit of background. As you may remember, the resolution of the settlement with PG&E was $70 million. $68.75 million of those dollars are in a city custodial account. $1.25 million will be added approximately once the Crestmore lot escrow with Castle Companies closes that you approved at one of your recent meetings, and that should happen by mid-April. So that total $70 million is there and will be there for the foundation. Separately, as you know, the Glenview Trust was funded with $50 million, and an independent trustee appointed to oversee that trust approved the formation expenses for the San Bruno Community Foundation through the end of February of 2014. But once the board started regular meetings, which were in March, the trustee directed that the foundation pay for all of their expenses on their own, essentially, pay their own way after they started their regular meetings. So the board has now hired an executive director. The board and the foundation need operating capital to pay her salary and other operating expenses. At the same time, the board is not quite ready to accept all of the funds. First, they have to adopt an investment policy that's subject to your approval, and they need to retain an investment advisor. They're in the process of doing that by issuing an RFP that's going to be developed by the board actually at their next meeting. So the city does anticipate the future transfer of all of those remaining funds to the foundation when the investment policy and investment advisor are in place. But up until then, we have to deal with the present, and so hence tonight's request is twofold. The first request is to transfer $350,000 from the city's custodial account to the foundation for operating capital. That's consistent with the operating budget that you approved, that the board approved as well, that was sent to the IRS. And even though that budget was estimated and based on reasonable estimates, the board will have to come up with its own budget. But I think both the foundation and staff believe that $350,000 is a reasonable amount of money and is consistent with everything that was in that budget. So that's the first request for tonight. The second request is to transfer $141,031.33, we forgot the 33 cents, to reimburse the city for post-March 2014 operating expenses. And you'll remember these are the operating expenses that the trustee of the irrevocable trust said should be borne by the foundation and not by the trust, and by extension, not by the city. The bulk of those funds were expended by the foundation for its executive director search. The rest of it, as outlined in the staff report, was for insurance, some outside legal fees, supplies, and so on. So the idea is that out of the city's custodial account will come $141,000 to the foundation. And then the foundation, who will have set up their own bank account, will then reimburse the city that exact amount. Now you're wondering, why go through that rigmarole? Why can't the city just transfer the money from one account into another? And the answer to that is because it's important for audit purposes that the money be transferred from the custodial account to the foundation and then back. So both the city and the foundation have that same paper trail and they can track what the money is for. It's important also to note that the city is not going to request reimbursement from the trust, has not requested and will not request reimbursement from the trust for that amount. So in other words, once the city's paid back from the foundation, the city will be whole in terms of the expenses that it's had. With one minor exception, there's a $12,000 bill from the executive director search consultant, the very last portion of their contract that was approved by the board, which just arrived today. So we'll account for that in the final distribution when the rest of the money is transferred. So for tonight, the total transfer is $491,031.33. I'll work with Vicki to amend that resolution to include the 33 cents. Then once that's accomplished, the foundation can be on its way, at least for the short term. The city can be reimbursed in the short term, and we'll look forward to transferring the rest of the funds once the foundation has its investment advisor and policy. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Good. Any questions for Mark? Any action by the council?
I'll be happy to introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Item 10C, adopt a resolution authorizing acceptance of a technical assistance grant from the Federal Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration for pipeline safety advocacy initiatives in the amount of $50,000 and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with the Pipeline Safety Coalition in the amount of $25,000 for grant administration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I just completed a lengthy presentation about numbers of initiatives that the city has individually undertaken as part of its response and actions directed at recovery in the wake of the 2010 explosion and fire in our community. The subject matter before you tonight, a technical assistance grant from PHMSA, the Federal Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, is another initiative that was actually begun by after outreach from Mayor Ed Pulowski of Allentown, Pennsylvania, shortly after a similarly devastating gas pipeline explosion occurred in that town, coincidentally, exactly 4 years ago today, on February 10th, 2011, just 6 months after the explosion here. Mayor Pulowski proposed to Mayor Ruane the idea of an establishment of a bi-coastal mayor's organization to advocate, educate, and to otherwise facilitate legislative and other reform necessary to bring about a safer gas utility system, particularly in populated communities. A great idea. Mayor Ruane readily agreed, and the two mayors have coordinated on a somewhat limited basis over the last couple of years towards this objective. But a good idea without funding source is hard to get off the ground and hard to carry out much in the way of initiative or activity. The Mayor's Council on Pipeline Safety was fortunate to be able to coordinate with a grassroots not-for-profit organization in Pennsylvania called the Pipeline Safety Coalition, and its executive director, Linda Farrell, who is a tireless advocate on behalf of pipeline safety, advocacy, education, and reform. Through Linda's efforts, the Mayor's Council was able to identify the opportunity of funding through PHMSA grants. In 2009, PHMSA established a technical assistance grant program, funded it at approximately $1 million per year, and has in each year since 2009 awarded grants in an amount up to $50,000 each for education, advocacy, and other types of activities related to pipeline and other types of safety initiatives that would generally fall under their regulatory umbrella. Working with the Pipeline Safety Coalition, this city and the city of Allentown individually filed grant applications for the 2015 grant year, and each of us were awarded a grant. By city policy, any grants are required to be accepted formally by the city council and acknowledged in order for any grant funds to be paid out. The grant awarded to the city is in the maximum amount through the PHMSA program of $50,000, and it generally covers a work program that is focused around some of the issues that were identified as being relevant to or causal factors of the explosion here in 2010. The grant provides for a contract with the Pipeline Safety Coalition to actually do the staff work, to coordinate with experts in the development of white papers and best practice recommendations on the topics that the grant identifies, and is intended the grant is intended to provide a self-sufficient, self-supporting program and operations, so that the grant-funded activities do not expect and should not impact the regular city work program or city resources other than those that are provided directly through the grant. I did take an opportunity to look at the PHMSA website, and I would encourage interested members of the council to do that as well, to see a listing of the grants that have been made by PHMSA over the last 5-6 years since the program has been in place. And it's actually interesting that a very wide variety of programs and activities have been funded, and ours certainly stacks up well within the general outline of the types of issues that are being supported by the technical assistance grants. The action that's before you tonight is twofold. One, to authorize formal acceptance of the grant, and two, to authorize execution of a contract with the Pipeline Safety Coalition for services associated with carrying out the grant-funded program. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for City Manager? Ken?
I don't get it. I mean, I think it's a good idea and everything, but it's confusing to understand what the $25,000 is in relation to the 50,000.
So the 25,000 is essentially the legwork, staff work to support the development of the white papers and the technical evaluation that the grant-funded program envisions. So in order to avoid impacting the city's staff work program, the contract would provide for staff services to be provided by the grassroots not-for-profit Pipeline Safety Coalition that has connections and is operating themselves within this environment to produce the work program that the grant funds are intended to produce.
So it has its built-in funding source for
Correct.
staff. So
Correct.
of the 50,000, half of that is allocated for staff
To do the work.
To do the work. Okay.
Correct.
I also, if I could, Mr. Mayor, I just went on to the Mayor's Council on Pipeline Safety.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great to, I mean, it's effective because it shows three fairly current within the last 5 years, San Bruno being the first one, major catastrophes on pipelines. And this is, I think, what I've mentioned, and I think what this council probably needs to do is to promote this to get nearly, I mean, hopefully every community to at least be a part of this. Not just our mayor and the one in Allentown, but, every jurisdiction in between. So I'm hoping that's being, pursued.
Yes. So the idea behind the Mayor's Council is to promote at the highest levels of local elected leadership an awareness not only among mayors whose communities have been impacted by this type of disaster, and there have been, like you say, a few, particularly in populated areas, which seems to be something that's happened with a little bit too much frequency since the explosion here in San Bruno, but also to engage labor, interested citizens, and industry representatives as well for sort of a multifaceted membership led by elected mayors whose interests of representing citizens in real communities where these things have actually happened to put together a work program. So it's a little bit different than some of the other grassroots organizations that have organized around advocates, landowners whose property is being taken by big oil companies who are bringing, big pipelines through their rural areas. This has a little bit of a different kind of focus, and the idea is by engaging mayors and city council members that the real-time perspective of your constituents can be represented in a more tangible way. It's a nice website.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Through the
Michael?
chair, yeah, I think I was a little confused too, trying to get through the, there's a lot of acronyms in here, and it looks like there's a lot of things going on. So basically, PHMSA puts up a grant. The city of San Bruno applied for the grant. We're going to take that grant and give a portion of that to the Pipeline Safety Coalition to do work on behalf of the Mayor's Council on Pipeline Safety.
That is correct. That's very good. Thank
Okay.
you. Yes, it was. I tried hard to make it. It is complicated.
Okay.
And I would only point out that the Mayor's Council is really not yet even really a organized organization, so it doesn't really have the ability to do it itself unless Jim and I and Ed Pulowski were to actually do the work, and we're at capacity on work. So, so this is really an opportunity to put this initiative forward, get this organization on its feet, produce some tangible work product, and begin to develop possibly a more stable funding source. Certainly these TAG grants are likely to be available. Numbers of organizations have applied repeatedly, and so for at least a limited period of time, this is actually a good resource for the type of work program that is envisioned here.
Okay. And so beyond the amount that's outlined here for the staff support, the remaining amount remains with the city of San Bruno, and that'll be expended as directed by the Pipeline Safety Coalition?
Yeah, so the grant work program, as I said, calls for the development of best practice white papers. It also includes the budget. The $50,000 was allocated in the grant proposal for, there's some travel involved for Jim to meet with Ed and other mayors to further the interests of the Mayor's Council. There's, I believe, some intent to use some of the funds for expert consulting assistance to develop the best practice recommendations. So there's the $50,000 is spoken for to deliver the work program, 50% of it to do the legwork, the staff work.
Okay. And I guess what I was trying to get at is, I mean, so the money's all spent, but, or at least encumbered, but not necessarily spent. And
That's correct.
So does that money then sit with the city of San Bruno until it's used up?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. So it's granted to the city and then expended by the city, but for the work program that was outlined, it can't be used for anything else.
Okay. And that's kind of what I wanted to see. Is it protected from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Any action by the council?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra. Aye. Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Final item 10D is adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Towell Inc. for surveying services for the Shelter Creek Condominiums water main replacement project in an amount not to exceed $56,540.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Jimmy Tan, City Engineer. The Shelter Creek development was constructed in the late 1960s to early 1970s. It's located and bounded by west of a 280, San Bruno Avenue, Whitman Way, and Shelter Creek Lane. Prior to development, utility easements were established for the installation of water, sewer, and storm systems to serve the complex. The one utility that has been problematic is the water system. The water pipelines, ranges from 6 to 12 inches in diameter, and they're off cast iron metallic pipes. Although the water pipelines are constructed within the easements, they are also directly adjacent to the buildings, which restrict access for maintenance staff to repair the water lines when a break occurs. Since 1982, there have been 7 water main breaks that have occurred as recently as one in October of 2014. The majority of water main breaks in the past were concentrated around building number 7, which is located over here. The main breaks caused significant property damage, within the residential property where the water flowed into the buildings and flooded the residential units, resulting in settlement claims for restoration of those affected properties. In 1999, the city conducted an evaluation, determined the cause of these water main breaks. And the investigation consisted of excavating 6 different pits around building number 7, and where majority of the breaks occurred. Soil samples were taken, and the pipe sections were cut to determine, what was the cause of these water main breaks. The investigation concluded that the mains were indeed corroding because there was no corrosion protection systems that was installed during the initial construction. The investigation resulted, to the replacement of the portion of the water line around building number 7 with PVC pipe, non-metallic pipe. This water main project for Shelter Creek was originally identified in the master plan, in the water master plan, as priority 3 project of lower priority. However, the project is being escalated in the priority because of the risk of flood-related damage to adjacent properties and to prevent future main breaks on the site. This project was discussed with the utility subcommittee meeting on November 12th, and also included in the fiscal year 2014-15 CIP, which was approved on January 27th. So the thought is to divide the project into 2 different phases, preliminary design and final design. The preliminary design phase will be conducted by city staff to evaluate the feasibility of replacing the water line on site within the existing easements, and to evaluate and resolve the constructability issues using the survey that we received from this contract. Once the alignment is established, then we'll go forward with an RFP to get consultant services for final design. RFP for the surveying services was sent to surveying companies and was also advertised on the city's website back in November of 2014. And the city received 7 proposals and evaluated them based on firms' qualifications, project managers and the team's experience, and the approach to reduce the overall cost of the survey work. The cost of ranges from $56,000 all the way to $140,000. So based on the evaluation, staff is recommending TAO to provide the professional surveying services for this project. TAO has over 59 years of surveying and mapping experience and has successfully provided the service to many public agencies throughout California, such as City of Oakland, San Francisco, and San Jose. The scope of work includes establishing horizontal and vertical controls, field verification, utility research, and providing the base map that's inclusive of all the surface feature and underground utilities. The staff estimates the survey to be completed within 3 months, and we'll coordinate with the general manager at Shelter Creek Condos prior to commencement of the work to obtain the site access. This project is an established project within the CIP with an appropriation of $150,000 from the Water Capital Fund to cover the cost of the surveying. And the proposed contract for TAO is at $56,540, so it's within the limits of the appropriation. Therefore, staff is recommended that the council to adopt the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with TAO for surveying services for the Shelter Creek Condos water main replacement project in an amount not to exceed $56,540.
Any questions of staff?
Through the chair. So this did go out to bid?
No.
Okay, so this part did not go out to bid?
No, it's only for the consulting services, so it was through the proposal process, the RFP proposal process.
Okay, and then how are they going to perform this? And I'm trying to understand. Some of us are trying to understand how do they go about it, and what do they do in order to assess this?
Correct. So what's going to happen is there will be aerial photography done on the site. So they will fly and take a photographic image of the site. From there, the surveyors will perform ground survey, and so they'll go to the site. They'll have a utility locator locate all the existing utilities. Then a ground survey crew will go in there and start surveying all the markings and of the utility locations. And then
the whole idea is to look at the existing easements that are out there and take the utilities, locate them, and align them with the easements, see exactly where they fall within the easements and the overall topography of the site.
But on that,
Okay.
you're going to find out exactly where those pipes are.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah. From probing, metal detectors,
Correct.
whatever.
And
Yeah.
it's going to be overlaid with where the
With it.
location of the existing
Right.
easements are.
Is there a concern that they're not within the easements?
No.
Anything is possible, council member. We just want to make sure that whatever design we come up with is going to be within the existing easements.
Anyone else? Mr. Rico?
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. I read the agenda packet online, and I guess you said it didn't go out to bid, but you did send out a request for proposals. In the past, you have listed the individual proposals and the estimate that the city engineer or whatever has come in with. How does the dollar amount that you're asking to be awarded, how does that relate to what the city engineer felt the cost should be? And secondly, you said the numbers coming back were from this amount all the way up to 140,000 or something. Do you have any feel for why some of them were so far higher? Thank you.
Since this is not a construction project, cost is not a factor of selecting the consultant. Since this is through the request for proposals, we were selecting the consultants based on the qualifications of the consultants. And so with that, even though we did, look at the costs as, not the cost, but the manpower allocations as one of the criteria to be able to determine whether the consulting firms are indeed, are efficient in performing the survey work, and that's how we end up in determining the selection of the consulting firm.
Through the chair.
Irene?
I think the other piece of the question is, why in the world would they have such a range from 56,000 to 140,000, more than double? What were the different companies telling you, or are we missing something by not going to the more expensive, or why?
We did evaluate that, and the RFP was very detailed, and all the scope of work that were provided by the consulting firms was very similar to the scope of work that we had indicated in the RFP. So it was just the overall manpower allocations that the consultants determined for the need of the project.
Okay, I'm just so curious, why with Google Maps, Google Earth, why do we need anyone flying over there? I mean, you have a fabulous picture already. Why do we need anyone flying over and taking a picture? Is one. Why 3 months? It's not that big of an area. Why does it take 3 months to find the water line?
The site is it's very congested and very dense. The utility easements are located between these buildings, and so with that, there's a lot of trees involved and surface features within the site. So we were trying to determine, we want to make sure that we capture all of that and include that in the survey, so that when the pipeline alignment is being determined, we want to make sure that we don't impact those many of the trees or any of the surface features that are on the site. And so, but the ground survey crew do need sometimes, because it's mostly a couple of man crews that goes out to the site to use your equipment to make sure that the utilities are actually surveyed correctly.
Okay, so are they going to only tell us where the water pipes are, or are they going to tell us where every single utility pipe is?
Every single utility is on the site.
Okay, and then
Yes.
we're going to enter that into our maps and
Correct.
keep them up. Okay, that's a better deal. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Connell, also, in regards to your questions about Google Map, you are correct. We have Google Maps now, and they're very useful. However, if you go on Google Map and try to zoom in, let's say, on your house, you could see how far the scale goes. After a certain point, you basically don't have the accuracy. So you could see your house, you could see where approximately the locations of the features are, but this is photogrammetry, which is an exact science for surveying, and by California law, they have to go to a certain scale in order to put their stamp on the map that yes, we are confirming that this is within an inch, actually a fraction of the inch of what's shown on the plans that are recorded in the county. So it has to be precise science.
Thank you for the clarification.
Anything else? Action by the council?
Introduce.
As I've been doing it all evening.
She said,
I'll
introduce her.
introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Item 11, report of commissions, boards, and committees. There aren't any this evening. Item 12, comments from council members. Anyone? Item 13, closed session. We had a closed session earlier. Item 14, adjournment. This meeting is adjourned to the next council meeting right here, February 24th.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, we needed to continue the closed session.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Um,
We will go into closed session for a brief discussion with staff.